Hi, thank you.
You hear me well, even in the back? Yeah? Okay. So I'm a designer, a little bit different than my previous, my colleague in his previous presentation. But yeah, today I'm going to try to talk about analytics and KPI and how you should guide the design processes. So we'll see if there's any designer in the room, but I'm eager to have some feedback about that. To start, this is me crossing the border later. Good morning. I'm a French and a Canadian. I'm a UX professional. I used to be a designer. I was a strategist for past 5 years, and now I'm also a researcher, and I'm a little bit of all that. It's been more than 10 years since I'm in Canada. I was born in 1992 in a small town in France, which is called Besançon, near the Swiss border. A lot of ice hockey, a lot of cheese, a lot of Swiss design inspiration, and my parents called me Torgal, which is a Viking space kind of Superman that arrives during the Viking time of Earth. So, you know, low expectation for me. As you can see, I have the body for that. I moved to Canada to do my master's degree. As I was saying, I almost go to the US, but it was a bit too expensive. I met my partner and graduated with her directly. I became a Canadian citizen 3 years ago. I bought my first house, become a dad 2 years ago, and I'm here presenting today, and I'm very proud. And yeah, I've been a UXer for the past 10 years since I moved to Canada, basically. My career since today, I've been privileged to work on multiple kind of projects, Wada World Anti-Doping Agency, multiple things in Quebec area, but also tourism office, which Yukon or Quebec, and now at Evolving Web, I've been able to work a little bit for Princeton, so I'm very happy about that. Railroads, York University, a lot of universities going on. A lot of them, and it's quite funny, but they were Drupal websites. And the first thing I learned, it was in 2010 also. The first CMS I learned as a designer, developer, can I do everything, you know, the first year of doing design. It was Drupal 6, and I remember that time it was much different than today, and that's why I became a designer, trying to understand Drupal 6 back then. But it helped me every day, you know, about how to structure taxonomies, to understand views, blocks, components, and all that. Since that time, like, as a designer, it constructed me how I see things, basically. So yeah, I'm a UX lead at Evolving Web, so basically I lead the discovery process. I do a lot of user research. I provide recommendation to all or most of our clients, and I design things. And I collaborate with other designers, developers, clients, and marketers. Enough about me. I'll switch to the other slide and the subject of today. My goal is to spark some ideas for your next project, whether you're a developer, a designer, a decision maker, or a project manager. I'd like to see how many designer is there in the room? Are there any? Yeah, can I think? Okay, product managers or product owners, depends on the definition. And decision makers, so whether you're for an agency like us, you'd be our client, basically. Okay, one again. All right, so the whole crowd is developers based, mostly, maybe. I hope that today I will succeed in improve design processes to, or at least maybe not yours, but your colleagues, inspire you for your next project, give you tools for your next collaboration with an agency. Basically, most of the time it's budget constrained, but also time frame and timelines. And what I'm here today is giving you tools for your next RFPs to make sure that if you need to work with an agency, you also have tools to discuss and challenge the decision of your agency. I'm here to popularize some methods and some deliverable. Because it's the last meeting of today's, if you have any question during the session, do not hesitate to raise your hand and I'll answer directly. We have a question session at the end, but could be a discussion. From my point of view, I see 4 critical steps to be a more data-driven designer. During the discovery workshops, to look at current analytics and what's going on the current websites. While we do user tests, of course, and interviews, whether it's decision makers interviews or stakeholders, as we don't like very much to use this term, and track and measure success. Because as designer, we promote a lot of good ideas and all that. Without developers, it wouldn't come to life in the end. And sometimes we tend to sit back and not look at what we made, but our decision as designer, did we improve things really or not? So just we need to track and measure our success. So during discovery workshops, the goal is to ask as many questions as possible and to be playful, because sometimes it's a lot of workshop with whether clients or user and all that, but the thing is people are here for sometimes an hour, maybe two, and for a couple of days in a row. So we must be playful and find ways to engage people and let them talk. Sometimes around the table we might be 2, 4, 3, 5, maybe 10, and we need to create a space for everybody to talk. Sometimes there is the personality that wants to say everything and that doesn't let anyone talk, and the one that sits on the back and never wants to talk. And us as designer or strategists, we need to find ways to make everybody engage. What we are looking for is to create consensus, align teams on vision and goals, get to know our clients' reality, and absorb as much as knowledge as we can, and to build empathy. Whether it's content creators, content editors too, but also our end users and the business itself, what they are trying to do to build a website. A couple of things here. What I really recommend is to centralize all the data that you gather during the discovery process, and to use the most AI tools to provide quick summaries and get feedback to your client about what went into the session and what we can tackle after that. Use collaborative tools. Us at Evolving Web use FigJam. In the past we used Miro. There is a ton outside. I really like FigJam, but Miro, I think it's better, but we are using FigJam. That's okay. And to make sense in those sessions, people will create a lot of post-its and share a ton of things, and it can be intimidating for another colleague to jump into the analysis of that. And we need to make sense of them as fast as we can. So we should categorize those post-its, label different insights, try to categorize them, create some sorting, regroup them by affinity, make sense of this raw data. And tools like Miro, FigJam, and I won't name any other, but they start to include information, artificial intelligence, French, English sometimes, to provide quick summaries. So as soon as you try to regroup, the idea is not to select every post-it that you had during a 2-hour session, but still do some manual work and then provide some summary so the result is more relevant. Some fast quick shots. An example of a recent client we had, which is Loyalist College, and it was very difficult for us at the very beginning because a lot of things, they had very big ambitions, but we never knew where to start, and we did the rebrand, we did the website completely, and took a new way to approach things, and it was a way to, okay, what is this college about? And it was about the brand, but its specificities. It's a very small college, and we needed to, bring the brand to life while also pushing the boundaries of, it's not Harvard at all, but bring it and make sure we showcase that. Second step, to leverage current analytics, to me is the part where most designers tend to forget or don't do at all. We must understand the current state of things. While we do a redesign, we need to see what's going on, what's working, what's not working, and try to understand what's happening. We need to analyze past performance. Ultimately, look at patterns, not day-to-day things, but more broad, like past year, past 30 days, past 3 months. Try to track user journeys. Look at various sources of information. I have some example, but something that we sometimes overlook are reviews or channels, whether it's from Yelp or Reddit channels, any source of truth where users create content and share about our clients, and it's sometimes very insightful. Analyze heat map and session recordings. As you'll see, I have some key insight for that. Look everywhere, be a detective. So look at online reviews, social media mentions. So yes, go look at the your client or yourself and what you post and see what kind of messaging we are doing, but also look at who tags our client or yourself and what kind of posts people do. Is it mostly events? Is it mostly architecture? I had a walk in Princeton a little bit late, before this meeting, and I couldn't just take any photos of every door or of every building, and I was impressed of everything, and I tagged Princeton every time. And to look at customer support, at help desk, to see if there are question that often comes, and see if why people ask always those kind of same question, and reviews on app stores or competitor website reviews, what people like from we have two college, we have ours and the other one performs very well, what people likes about them, and how can we position ourselves in this competition also. Again, if you have any questions, do not hesitate. Heat maps can be intimidating. You'll see there are a ton of tools outside, such as Ajar is the one we mostly use. Can be intimidating because you have access to a lot of data and you can install it just with a click, and then you are like, okay, I don't know where to look at. Before going into heat maps, I really recommend to set clear objectives of why you are going to use those tools. List some third hypotheses. So if you look at analytics, whether it's the main pages, the main flows, you see there are some problems, people are leaving a specific page. Try to create some hypothesis. Maybe there is too much content, maybe the navigation isn't clear. Try to, before jumping into heat maps, try to come up with some hypothesis to know what to look at and to avoid confirmation bias, but just to have hypothesis and to know what to look at after. To start with key pages, whether it's the home page, the contact page, a specific program, or the pages that drive the most users, and then try to segment them, whether they are new visitors or returning visitors. Then you could have very different results. For example, a new user could scroll your whole page, and a returning visitor will know where to click. And then if you just look at the broad data, wouldn't mean anything because you are mix matching both kind of users, and you need to segment them to make sure to analyze that. Use click heat map first to see where people clicks. Try to find if there are any rage clicks. Also could means the button is not clickable or the zone is too small. There are some insight that can be useful, and most tools like this one offers the recording, so you can follow any user that goes on your website and follow the mouse and see what they do. Do it selectively, because you could spend hours and hours just looking at mouse and you don't know what they were trying to do. You see what they are doing, but you don't have any feedback. Oh, that's the information I'm looking at. So you can spend a ton of hours just looking at people moving their mouse and you don't know what they were trying to do. Important things for designers: analyze traffic patterns to identify problems and come up with some hypotheses. Look at previous design, but look beyond things. I think Susan said that, but it's not because not a ton of people goes to a specific page that it's not important. Maybe it's important, but people cannot access this page with the correct navigation. Sometimes there is too many content on the page, so people tend to not scroll through. So maybe it's not a problem of content. Sometimes it's a problem of information architecture and navigation instead of thinking people leave on this specific page. And sometimes also from Google Analytics, you'll see a big bounce rate, but it could also mean that people found the information that they wanted. So it's not a bad thing to have a big bounce rate sometimes. Use heat maps to understand behavior, but to be selective on what you are looking. One example of a project I did in the past, which was the CHUM, it's the hospital, University Hospital of Montreal, which is the hospital in Montreal. And the idea behind this project was to merge 40 websites into a single one, which was something to tackle information architecture-wise. It's still ongoing because some websites are still outside of the main website. But here, one thing that was very interesting was to sit with real users and also look at what was happening and what kind of pages were important in specific moment of the year, whether for specific patients or for recruitment. for interns and all that, there was like some regular patterns in traffic navigation that we needed to put in place, and such as the example as we see at the end. The idea of within the home page was to be able to, and sorry, it's in French, but to be able to select the kind of user that you are, and based on the season or the need of editorial from the administration, we were able to promote some links. And the second row are direct pages, so it's not keywords, it just drives you to a specific page at a specific time. Sorry. One thing very important, to talk and test with real users. One statement that I like to have is that UX without users is not UX. There are a lot of UX designers out there, and they don't meet a lot of users anytime. So just make sure that you involve real users in your process. Conduct user interviews, surveys, do usability testing as much as you can. It can be as low fidelity as possible. Create your persona if you don't have any. I entice you to create some, even the most basic one, and then to improve them over time. As soon as you gather more insight, then you go back to the persona and you add more content and more real context towards them. Use low fidelity first. As soon as you want to talk and share some ideas with real users, do not hesitate to go with pen and paper. I'm starting to be an old one on this one, but the less amount of time you spend on prototyping and sharing idea to real users, the faster you get feedback, and that's the idea. Stop guessing what people want and ask them directly. To use some surveys template promoted by Ojar, for example, but not only, some basic question that you can reuse. Aim for simple, close question at first. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how easy was it to complete this task? And then to find ways to create a space for open feedback at the end. So you just ask a very simple question, how easy was it? And then if people want to type a long paragraph about their journey, they can. And sometimes you get real feedback for that. Place those in key journey moments. Sometimes based on the nature of your company or your organization, can be difficult to spot the specific time, but it could be completion of a contact form, selecting a program, downloading a specific file, accessing a piece of content through your website using the search. There can be a lot of conversion tracking that we want to pop this kind of surveys after an action from a user. Personalize it looks. It's very easy to integrate in a website, but if it doesn't look like yours, it will just look like a spam or something to forget about, and people will just not look at them. So try to personalize it as much as you can, but not spend too much time on it also. Get to know your users, talk to them. It's good to talk to decision makers, product owners, and all that, but the real end user will be the one with the real answers. And previously, my colleague Jesse mentioned the content editor, and sometimes our main users are those content editor. Yeah, people consume those content, but sometimes the website we build is also for them, mostly. And we need to prioritize feature for all our audiences, make sure that we push the effort where it's needed, reduce false assumptions, for sure. All users do that, and it's something we hear very often. We need to build empathy with them. From time to time, I give an example just right after, but international students, for example, like they commit to come in another country, and there is a lot of uncertainty, and they need to spend a lot of money, but they need to be reassured, and there is this whole context. And as I mentioned, SHUM, there is also the emergency situation, people that, okay, they need to go to the hospital right now, and maybe they are in the waiting room, and they are like, okay, my kid is very sick, I'm looking for some content, and maybe it's difficult to make choices at that time, and you need to take into account those kind of real context usage. Avoid unnecessary features and development. Talking to them, making sure we can prioritize things. You can, if you talk to them and you come up with a list of 5 features and you ask them to prioritize them, and sometimes you get a feedback, well, that's a good idea, but really this thing might be more useful, and I really like that. Benchmark navigation. Susan talked a little bit this morning. I don't know if anyone was in the same room very early this morning. But to benchmark the navigation, the tree testing is very useful. So you just need to copy paste your information architecture, just the labels, and then you provide tasks to accomplish to users, and you see what paths they are taking. And the basic example is like in e-commerce, someone that wants to buy a pair of socks, and then you have your whole information architecture. Will it go towards shoes or towards accessories? And then you can see what path people are trying. And sometimes one piece of content can be in multiple places, but those results will show you like validate assumption about information architecture, identifying navigation pain points, benchmark over time. So if you test your navigation, you do a revision of it, retest it with the same scenario and the same task. Are you really improving things right now? And for a content website, it's okay, it's quite easy to move things. But imagine for an e-commerce website, sometimes it's very difficult to manipulate categories and reassign categories, and you need to go to the ERP and CRM, and there is a lot of logistic behind it, and it's very, very complex to manage. And you need to make sure of what you are trying to accomplish and say to your client after, oh well, you need to revise your information architecture, and then they revise it, and okay, maybe it was a bad idea, or we need to change it again, and then it's very tiresome and very it's not fun to do. So we need to make sure that what we are doing is also good. Test usability, again, can be multiple level of fidelity. Could be kind of paper thing, wireframe, or mockups, high fidelity thing, or even live website. But as much as you can, try to test usability, iterate, and launch. As soon as you do, the faster you can improve your prototype. And if it's just pen and paper, then as soon as you go on wireframe or mockup, then you can already take that into account. Important thing to consider, test with users that are close to the target audience. Sometimes it can be challenging. For example, international students can be difficult to hire or find them. Us as a specific reality living in America, but speaking French, to recruit French people, but not from France, it's kind of difficult because we use very different words for the same things. And if you test an information architecture but from people from France or the UK compared to US, people won't understand any label maybe. So it's very important to be as much as close to your target audience. Try to test features, sometimes the most complex ones, to get the more feedback. If you try, you test the home page, but the home page is just news and events and that's it. Well, you get feedbacks about the overall structure and all that, but you won't get many valuable feedback about interactivity and interesting about navigation and all that. Iterate based on feedback from all kinds of tests. Example from York University, we are currently in the process of discovery with them. So we are doing a lot of interviews, if it's content editors, people from the university, but also prospective student, current student, people that just enrolled and did a semester back then. So just get feedback about how the website was useful, and we already get a ton of feedback about, because it's a big university too, and they have multiple websites all over, so it's also difficult to navigate, and they have challenges, and we already have plenty of ideas for the next steps. Track, measure success. Keep track of your changes. As I kind of said in the beginning, it's not because we are doing a redesign that it's better. If you look at popular websites such as Amazon, it's not very pretty or at all. But it works, and sometimes what works, and it's not because now it's more prettier and more storytelling and all that it's more useful for users, and sometimes we worsen the situation. Like, we improve the design, visually it's more appealing, but in the end people don't find the content that they were looking for. So it could be very interesting. We need to look at post-launch analytics. We need to monitor user behavior regularly, make sure that if we need make improvements, we are sure that we made the right decision. Measure success over time. A website changes a lot. There are content editors creating new content every time, people changing the main navigation. That's why I like to go back to previous website I built over the time and see, oh, okay, it evolves like that. I'm not sure it wasn't what was expected at the beginning, but you see it evolving, and that's okay. Continuously improve your website. One thing that would highly not recommend would be to engage with an agency. They deliver the website, and then there is no plan for what's happening in the future. One thing in the agency life that we call the version 2, most of our clients, we say, oh, we have this bucket of features and we know it's them. We have this budget to do all these features and not those ones. Then those features will do them in version 2. To be transparent, version 2 never happens most of the time because clients spend all their budget, they move to other project and all that. And it's really a challenge between the relation between clients and agency, and we need to revise that. And that's where I'm hoping there are some decision maker here. What to track at post-launch? User engagement, follow conversion metrics that we set at the very beginning, make sure that we follow that, whether it's contact form, newsletter subscription, download of specific kind of documents, make sure that we trigger whether macro conversion, but also micro conversion. Are they able to find and use the search? Are they able to use the navigation? Make sure that it's right, and returning visitors and people that were on desktop went to mobile after, and just make sure that we track that. Track user satisfaction, such as I said at the very beginning, to put some surveys, whether at a specific moment, but just also overall experience. It doesn't cost anything just to send an email saying, hey, can you answer this satisfaction survey? Most of users won't ever answer that, but we might have some sometimes. Look for changes in nav pattern. This is an old screenshot from Google Analytics, but I find this one the most useful. One thing that as a UX researcher, we tend to, at least more younger UX researchers tend to build and craft very polished reports. It's not very useful. We need to, as soon as we can, share the results to people, whether it's the client, other teams, whether development, design, other colleagues, marketers. We need to share them. We should not aim for perfection. We need to share what we learn and what insights we can work on very quickly. We need to contextualize data. If you show a specific table or anything doesn't mean something, you need to tell a story with your data. And so to try to find ways to explain what's happening and put context, and that's why your persona, if you craft them and you include more and more data to them, then it makes sense and people engage and can create empathy. Collaborate with others. So whether I did this report, and then if it stays on my team as a UX researcher, it's not useful. It needs to go through the designer or through the developers, to the client, to marketers, make sure we create more content or align things all accordingly. Important things to measure when measuring success. Please don't overlook traffic spikes just after the launch. It could be a lot of marketing efforts in that, campaigns. It doesn't mean that you are successfully redesigned a website because the traffic spikes compared to the previous version is very high. Look back after 3 months to see if it raised and see if there are anything to change again. Set up automated reports, making sure that you have a Looker Studio, for example, that is set up that the client can look very quickly. Make sure that you go and check that regularly, whether it's popular keywords, top pages for returning visitors, top pages for new visitors. Just try to make sense and don't launch Google Analytics without knowing what you are looking. And that's why a Looker Studio can be helpful as you kind of scope the kind of data that you can look at. And to measure success, the website is live, and it's the real time that people will interact with the live website. Before that, it's all prototype, hypothesis, and design things and all that. Once it's live, that's when we can really test and see and track what's really happening. As designer, we are. I tend to joke about that, but we are colorists, or just we like to do sketches. Without developers, we wouldn't have any website, or at least back in the day. Now with Webflow and all that, maybe we don't need you anymore. In a couple of years, maybe, hopefully. An example of a specific client that I'm very proud that I I and my team back then, what was the Quebec City Tourism Office. It was a very challenging project because they were living a difficult situation where people wouldn't go to any tourism office website. There is no rule for that. People would go to Google, Yelp, look at reviews and all that, but do their search by themselves or buy a book that is very pretty and they can jump on it. And there was no real role for that. And the reality of a tourism office is that they have members and they pay a subscription to be displayed, and there is all data analytics behind that they need to see if it's going well. And what we did for them is to really revise how they were creating content. Before that, they were creating pages and information about things to do and all that. What we did is to say to them, you don't create any more pages. You are going to create articles, and we're going to move to a content page model to an article page where every page is basically an article. Whether it's an itinerary, it's information about a specific thing, everything is an article, and let's treat it that way. It's built on Drupal. Don't ask me too much about the technicality things, but pretty sure it was a decoupled one, but I'm not sure. And the idea is to, as soon as the people land on the website, we want to keep them as much as we can. So we try to find a loop, try to merge new interests. People find news articles, related things to explore. As soon as you land on a specific category, such, for example, microbreweries that might interest you, then we have a ton of things to do related. Not just brews, but things to do nearby, and see if you need an itinerary, then I can build you an itinerary just based on microbreweries across the city, basically. And the idea was there, and one key thing that I find successful is this website was built almost 6 years ago, and it didn't change at all, just slightly a bit. And the idea behind that, it was because it was article focused, then the main navigation and all the content is evolving, and there is always new things to share. It's not, if you go and you click on the city, you won't see content from 5 years ago. It's all new pages, but it's all new articles that they are publishing every time and every day. And they are referencing members in those articles, and they are looking for impression and views and pay-per-clicks and redirection and all that, and that's very nice. And what was funny to see is that when I took the plane to come here, there was an ad on a big TV in Quebec City Airport showing the exact same shots that we did back then as a new strategy to make sure that we were creating something that was everywhere on omni-channel kind of thing. Like, we were creating video, we were creating a website, but also campaigns and making sure that everything was connected. And a friend of mine is working now for the agency that re-won the program, and they are reusing the website as it was intended, and it's a very successful story from that. Conclusion? Yeah, 10 minutes. To make summary of all this, you should invest in research to minimize risk. The more amount of time that we spend in research, it's time we can refocus on development and not develop things that we don't need, and realize that once it's developed and once it's live, basically, and to try to refix it once it's live. Data is everywhere. For us designers to know where to look at, just opening Google Analytics can be tiresome and very intimidating at first, but we need to know how to use it. We don't need every details from Google Analytics, but as designers, there are specific things that might interest us. Use AI to summarize and make sense of all this data. You are doing as I say, a discovery workshop, and there are hundreds and hundreds of post-its if you did that with a lot of people from your client. And just to read that and do affinity mapping and grouping, I used to do that by hand, and now I just select things once it's regrouped, and it creates summaries for me, and then I can do a report, basically. So it's very useful, and you should use that. Some useful tricks that I'd like to share is collect more data as much as you can, and to try to centralize it, whether it's within a specific file within a Miro or FigJam or specific table and all that, and try to centralize it. Why that is that you're gonna accumulate some insights, and as soon as time goes, and maybe in 2 years, you'd be interested to look at a specific element or why we took this decision. And that's where, if it's in the same place, you can type Command F and search for a specific keyword and find it back, and then regenerate a summary of that. Involve real potential users as often as possible. Create recurring contact with super users, as I like to call them. Previous project, we had a pool of users that were willing to help us build that. They weren't part of the client structure, but they were like power users that were willing to spend time with us and look at what kind of things we were doing. One example that I have specifically for that is we redid the election website of Quebec province, would be the New Jersey state, if I can compare. And we paid users to help us build the information architecture, revise the mockups and all that, and people were surprised we were paying them because they were happy to participate, to improving their electoral processes, basically. So sometimes you can find some power users, and we should make sure to use them. Find internal opportunities to share your findings as soon as you can. Sometimes that I like to call the UX meetup, and you can share insight to the whole team, and it's just a specific space, or create a meeting where anyone can jump in and ask questions about UX or UX research, or saying, oh, I'd like to test that or test that idea before going live. Make sure that you break the silos, and people that wants to get involved in user research can do it. And that would be it. Question, thank you, and all that. Any questions? Maybe not beer? Then, because it's mandatory by my company. Have you heard about Evolve Drupal? It's a nice event at Boston, June 6th. Don't miss out. Thanks, everyone.